Welcome to Books and Ideas, the podcast where I talk with interesting people from a wide variety of fields. I'm your host, Dr. Ginger Campbell, and today my guest is Jody Cole, founder of Wild Rainbow African Safaris. Jody and I first met in 2013 when a longtime fan of my podcast, Brain Science, invited me to go on safari in South Africa. Jody was actually the only American guide, and she happened to be from Birmingham, Alabama, which is where I've lived for over 40 years. I think she's an amazing woman, so I'm looking forward to letting her share her story with you. For the sake of those of you who listen to my new show, Grain Rainbows, please be aware that the version of this interview that appeared a couple of weeks ago as episode 16 of Grain Rainbows is actually a longer version of the same interview. As usual, I want to encourage you to subscribe to Books and Ideas in your favorite podcasting app. You can send me feedback at docartemis@gmail.com or submit voice feedback at speakpipe.com/docartemis, DOCARTEMIS. Hey, Jody.
Hi.
Yeah. So, Jody, you want to tell us, before we talk about your safari business, would you just tell us a little bit of your story? How did you get into this? It's a very unusual profession.
It's definitely not a common profession, no. The shortest version of the story is that I followed a dream that I really didn't know I had. I started going on to Africa in my mid-30s. A friend of mine, my dad had died in my early 30s, and I was a little lost in my life, and a friend of mine basically told me to get over myself and, as we say in the South, quit your belly aching. That's all one word, by the way. And start living my life and start living my dreams. And I don't need my dad's permission anymore. And the first thing that came to mind was, I haven't been to Africa. I'm going to go. So I organized a safari with a great company out of California, which is where I was living at the time. And I put together two of their trips back to back. And the first one was to South Africa. And the second trip was to Tanzania. That included climbing Kilimanjaro. And while I've been an athlete most of my life, climbing a mountain had never been part of my idea of how I would spend my athletic time. When I did that, it was January of 1998. So that was exactly 21 years ago when I started my adventuring to Africa. And I successfully summited Kilimanjaro and had a great time. And I came home a changed woman. I realized that I could say yes to my own dreams without having to ask anyone permission to do that. And I subsequently began going on my own one time a year, and the following year it was twice a year. And then a friend came to me and asked me to help her put together her 50th birthday safari. And having had no experience with anything like that, I said, well, let's put it together. So we did. And I said, there's one caveat, and that is, since this is your birthday, let's do this. We'll put the trip together. And then once the wheels of the plane hit the tarmac in Africa, I will be in charge and you'll be the birthday princess. Because I thought, well, I was raised in the South. I certainly have some sort of hosting skills, I hope. So off we went for 10 days in Tanzania, and 20 people joined us on that trip. And from there, we together started the company Wild Rainbow African Safaris because it was so successful. And we worked together for a year, and she realized, whoa, I'm too young to be working this hard. Jody, how about you take the company? I'm going to step out quietly and wish you the best. I have been off and running ever since, and that was 2004. So this year marks our 15th year.
So let's talk about Africa, since I know that is is it Africa or is it travel? What is it that really lights you up?
It's Africa. Because if it's travel, I actually am a bit of a chicken when it comes to traveling. But for some reason, Africa is an entirely different category for me. And to be clear, it's Sub-Saharan Africa. It's where you find the majority of elephants and primates and antelope and so on. Once you move further north in Africa, you lose a lot of that. So it's that deepest, darkest Africa where all the wild things are.
So would you like to tell my listeners a little bit about what your company does?
Yes. Wild Rainbow African Safaris is a safari company that we guide, or I should say I guide, private safaris for groups of, I've had as many as 20, but I think the best group size is around 8 to 10 people. I've even guided 1 and 2 individuals before. Each safari is created and or curated with you. We don't have any set date or set itineraries that I could just plunk into an email and send it to you. So how does this look? I typically will have a conversation with you over the phone or through a series of emails to find out exactly what is it about you and this trip to Africa that is meaningful to you. What are you drawn to? Is this a childhood thing? For me, I grew up watching Sunday Night Mutual of Omaha's Animal Kingdom, and Born Free came out and all of that. You know, what is your draw? Now, if the listener is thinking, oh, that's just too much work, I don't want to have to do that. I really would rather just get on the line and find an itinerary and sign up. And that might be the perfect thing for you. However, if you have certain expectations around what you think your trip is going to be or what you want your trip to be, the personal touch that we provide is the key, the thing that enhances your experience of Africa. I've had many people say, oh, we went to Tanzania and we went with company so-and-so and it was a great trip. Man, we didn't stay any place for very long, and there was often a language barrier, and I didn't quite, understand some of the things we were seeing. And, we had to deal with a big group of 20 some odd people, and one person's taking photographs and the rest are needing to go to the bathroom or whatever. and you're not getting the full experience. And what we provide, or what I provide by my being along on the safari with you, is 21 years of experience and 11 years of guiding for me. I am a certified guide with South Africa and South African, called the Field Guides Association of Southern Africa, and I've also done guide training in Kenya. You get my 21 years of experience to East and Southern Africa. And oftentimes, guides that are working on the ground, it is their life and their passion around showing you their country and so on. And I don't ever want to take that away from any of my guides that I'm working with. So what I do when I'm with my guests, we always have the local guides that are driving the vehicle, and they know all the right spots to go to. What enhances the experience for both the guide, myself, and my guests is that we all get to work together. I don't ever try to take anything away from the local guides, because especially if they're Black, African, usually men, they have their own stories about growing up in Kenya, for instance, their customs, Kenyan customs, the national parks of Kenya, and the political history of Kenya, and so on. This is something that I feel I don't even have a right to speak about, but I do have an Americanized opinion that might work perfectly in the storytelling. However, once we get out in the bush, he and I can work together to create a full and well-rounded experience for our guests, and we work together to make sure everybody's needs are met in terms of getting the right picture of that lion cub versus, can we get a little closer because I can't quite focus on the eyelashes of the giraffe. And by the way, how tall is that giraffe and what's their gestation period and so on. And why are there habits that they have? And oftentimes, this is certainly not my way of taking anything away from the knowledge of my brothers in the industry. But oftentimes, because of my experience of being all over East and Southern Africa, I have stories that can help ground out knowledge of a certain animal. and information to help explain the entire ecological experience that the guests are having. One of the things that I really enjoy doing is painting a picture of their experience of Africa so that they could take it home and use that very same experience in their life at home. And that might leave listeners, and it does leave guests scratching their head going, how does my Africa experience stay with me when I go home? Well, you've got your pictures, but there's going to be one day, and this is one of my favorite things. I had a guest from California once who came out, and every time she saw a bug, and those of us from the South know this, that when we see out of the palmetto bugs, some of us call them roaches, palmetto just makes them sound nicer, we stomp them. The first thing we want to do is just splat and clean it up with a paper towel.
That's okay in your house, but it doesn't make sense out in the bush.
Right. Well, that's where this guest was going. She's like, well, I could do that in my own house. I don't want to do that in my house. And I said, well, wait a minute. When you go home, I want you to take a second look at that roach or beetle or butterfly, or some people stink bug, which is really a shield bug. What is its role in nature? What did I learn about it? Why is it here? What significance does it have in Alabama, or if you have a listener from Utah or somewhere, or Australia? You said you have some listeners in Australia. So before you even, without thinking, step on it, maybe you'll hesitate. And then next time you'll grab a piece of paper and a cup, you'll scoop that thing up and take it outside. I want people to leave with an entire ecological understanding, which includes human relationships. So that's why I like these guys to talk about their country and our entire relationship, because there's not a difference between human lives and human culture and nature lives and nature culture. It's all one big picture, which could, of course, lead to a conversation about the whole global experiences that we're having now. But nature plays a huge role in that. And this guest of mine told me that when she got back to California and a beetle of some sort was in her house, she didn't get the piece of paper and the cup, but she got her partner. She didn't stomp it. She got her partner to escort this thing out of the house. That was my success. That's why I was on that safari, because I had a personal victory, and this person looked at her life, in this case a bug, in a different way.
So you've been doing this now for 21 years. Is that right?
My personal experience of Africa is January. It was 21 years. My company, as of July this year, 2019, we will be 15 years old.
So what do you see for the future? You going to be a little old lady guide someday, or?
I hope so.
I mean, is that your dream? Is your dream to do this for as long as you can?
My dream is to do it for as long as I can and to provide as many people as possible with nature and bush experiences that does cause a shift in them, and they take it home. We're working on some more immersive type safaris now, meaning backpacking might cause somebody to go, ugh, but something where we spend a little bit more time out in the bush without a vehicle. Hopefully an overnight experience for some people. Some people would call that extreme adventure. Others would be like, only one night? You're kidding. Something that sends people home as an ambassador to Africa, but an ambassador to nature and wildlife. Also working with a friend to do some corporate leadership training in Africa, which would be kind of cool. We'll see how that goes. But right now, our focus is on comfortable, privately guided luxury safaris and changing people, changing lives one person at a time, one safari at a time.
I'm going to cut in here for just a moment to remind you that you can help Books and Ideas grow by posting a review in iTunes. Anyone who sends me a screenshot of their review will get a $10 gift card from Amazon. All you have to do is send your screenshot to me at docartemis@gmail.com. So are your groups predominantly women, or what's the most common sort of makeup of your groups?
Originally, my safaris did have a predominance of women and all gay or all lesbian. Now it has become very mixed. I'd still say that we are over 50% LGBT guests. And just for any listener out there, that I have had a couple trans guests, which was super cool. And we could also just say that everybody is just as ordinary and normal as the next person. But I just wanted to put that out there. And I've had family. I've had 2 family trips. My youngest guest is a 5-year-old. And my oldest guest has been an 81-year-old. And it's very mixed, gay and straight. And the families, by the way, were both heterosexual families.
But I know when I talked to you when I was first coming out a few years ago, one of your advices to me was to do some traveling, which I actually haven't had a chance to follow through on yet. Obviously, it's good for people to know that this will be a place where they could feel comfortable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. I did do a lesbian-only trip once, and then my dream trip, and the gay boys listening might get a giggle out of this, but my dream trip is to have an all-gay male group of men with me. Something tells me I might be the butchest one in the group.
I think I know who I need to get you connected with.
It would be so fun for me, but that's really kind of tongue-in-cheek. But I love taking anybody to Africa. I enjoy it, yeah.
What's your website?
Oh, my website, thank you. It is wildrainbowsafaris.com.
Is there anything else that you would like to share before we close, Jody?
After my dad died, I went through a rough period, and a friend of mine called me one day and said, Jody, when I lost my second parent, somebody gave me this advice, so I'm going to give you the same advice. I said, well, what is it, Rebecca? And she said, yes. I said, beg your pardon? She said, yes. I said, is that the punchline? She said, yes. And I said, could you share a little bit more about where you're going with this? And she said, for a year, I was told to say yes, no matter what I was invited to do, no matter what anybody asked me if I liked oysters, say yes. Have you ever been interested in walking barefoot across a volcano? Yes. You know, the most absurd questions. Would you like to go to the opera, knowing full well that you have no interest in the opera, or so on? Just say yes. Because you have no idea what the answer yes can bring to you. Saying no closes off all possibility of anything happening, shuts it down right away. But if you say yes, you at least have the opportunity to think it through. Going through with it down the road doesn't matter, but saying yes helps you go through the process of considering whether or not to do it. And her encouragement to me was to go ahead and go through with it. So I did. For a year, I said yes to everything. Well, now I just tell anyone I'm talking to, whoever asks me for advice, I just say yes. What have you got to lose? Just say yes.
That is great. That's perfect for the end of our conversation. And I hope we can talk again soon. Let's not make it every 2 or 3 years from now on. It seems like that's been our current rate of talking to each other. So thanks again, Jody. I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Absolutely. Well, I'm honored that you considered speaking to me, and actually we've made it to this point. So thank you so much. I'm excited.
I've actually been trying to get Jody Cole on Books and Ideas since we first met back in 2013. But since she spends more than half of her time in Africa, it's been pretty hard for us to get together. However, now that Books and Ideas is back on a monthly schedule, we're finally able to make it happen. If you have a trip to Africa on your bucket list, please consider Wild Rainbow African Safaris. Jody leads every trip herself, and everyone is welcome. I'm not getting a commission or anything, but please do tell her that you heard about it here. As you might imagine, the reason that the Grain Rainbows version of this interview is about 20 minutes longer is in that version, Jody shares her personal coming out story. If that interests you, just go to grainrainbows.com and look for episode 16. As always, I'd love to hear your feedback, so please write to me at docartemis@gmail.com or submit voicemail at speakpipe.com/docartemis. Also, there is a Books and Ideas fan page if you want to post something there. The next episode of Books and Ideas will be coming out on the 15th of next month. But don't forget the entire back catalog is available for free. Also, I hope you will check out my other podcasts, Grain Rainbows, and of course, Brain Science. Thanks again for listening. I look forward to talking with you again next month. Books and Ideas is copyright 2019 to Virginia Campbell, MD. You can copy this show to share it with others, but for any other uses or derivatives, please contact me at docartemis@gmail.com. Theme music for Books and Ideas is The Open Door by Beatnik Turtle. Please visit their website at beatnikturtle.com.